Welcome to Module 4, Week 9, Discourses and Things, International Political Sociology and Post-Structural Approaches. Our discussions in the previous week brought up the distinction between the politics of security, aka what security does, and the ethics of security. In other words, what is security's endpoint or notion of progress? The Welsh School articulated a very clear ethics of security, which is also the source of most of the critiques leveled against it. The security approaches we are going to be looking at this week are particularly concerned with the politics of security. This includes the Copenhagen School, the post-structuralist and international political sociology crowd, also known as the Paris School. You'll notice that for the Welsh School, security is something good, something to aspire to. In contrast, the approaches we are looking at in the coming week are a bit skeptical of this whole business of security, which is understood less as an endpoint and more as a set of practices with the potential for negative consequences. In other words, the approaches of security that we're looking at this week are approaches that are concerned with what security does. First, we will look at the Copenhagen School and their focus on securitization. Buzan, Weaver, and de Wilde, whose 1998 book, Security, A New Framework for Analysis, was seminal, where some of the earliest versions of the idea of securitization were fleshed out. Essentially, these scholars developed theories to help explain what happens in the case of something being placed on the security agenda. They were also among the first broadeners of security, because they divided security into sectors: military, environmental, economic, societal, political, and so on. Theories advocating desecuritization have emerged from here. In other words, how can we take something out of the realm of security once it has been called a security problem? So what is securitization? Securitization occurs when something has been successfully cast as a security issue by an appropriate authority uttering a securitizing speech act in a way that is perceived as such by the receiving audiences, whomever they may be. I will go over this more in class, but suffice to say that certain actors are better at securitization, namely those in positions of authority, and certain topics are easier to securitize, such as things that already carry connotations of danger or harm or threat. Further, felicity conditions must be present, aka there usually need to be mitigating factors that make it plausible. Something is cast in terms of security, usually by casting it as some sort of existential or ontological threat. But why do we care? Why are the Copenhagen security scholars concerned about securitization? Because of what this does, because of what can happen next. Once securitization successfully occurs, it legitimizes the use of exceptional measures. These are usually the type of security practices that we might be concerned about. Next class, we will also discuss post-structuralist approaches to security. This is another broad umbrella category, and it refers to understandings of security that emphasize the centrality of discourse and the socially constructed nature of the world as being intimately connected to and dependent on forms of knowledge and relations of power. Post-structuralist thinking has a pedigree in some of the 20th century French philosophers. Two influential thinkers are Jacques Derrida and Michel Foucault. For Derrida, things always have an identity or are known, aka exist, in binary relations to other things. For Michel Foucault, he brought forth the idea that meaning and truth are produced and secured through different discourses and institutional practices. So the relationships between knowledge, discourse, and power are concepts that Foucault brings to post-structuralism. This brings us next to international political sociology, which is sometimes referred to as the Paris School. This is a sociologically oriented approach that fuses concern with discourses of security and the social construction of danger and threat, with a focus on security practices, including material ones. This has given rise to a novel field in security studies looking at security relations. That is, security relations between security professionals, governmental and non-governmental institutions, the police, the military, and private enterprise across an increasingly globalized terrain. This approach spends a lot of time examining security networks and the impact of material practices. Post-structuralism, or post-structuralist approaches to security, are a diverse and heterogeneous body of intellectual thought that engages with but does not reject the structuralist tradition. Foucault analyzed the way in which truth is always a product of the relations between knowledge and power. A Foucauldian approach to power does not see it as something that can be possessed. Rather, power is always relational, and where there is power, there is often resistance. David Campbell's reading, Writing Security, was a pioneering application of post-structuralist thought to the study of security, in which he argues that state identities are not given, but are produced and reproduced through discursive practices. In recent years, post-structuralist and IPS approaches to security have embraced sociological focuses on material practices associated with the politics of exceptionalism. So there is a lot to talk about, and if you have any questions about the readings before next week, please don't hesitate to get in touch.